As in other states where revenue is down, Florida legislatures continue to face the daunting task of funding services, including those for the elderly. However, one solution to balancing Florida's budget and even a potential area of savings to our state is through programs that divert seniors from costly nursing home care. Here to explain how targeting our limited resources at providing seniors with the help they need to remain in their own homes for as long as possible and also help our legislators as well as our taxpayers is John B. Clark, President and CEO of the Council on Aging in West Florida. Thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, you always are in the know on what's going on at the state level in terms of services for the elderly, and there's a lot of talk about the legislature this time of year. Tell us a little bit about what the legislators are facing right now.
Well, there's the governor, as you know, introduced a budget or proposed a budget of $69.2 billion to the legislature. And of that, over half of the state budget is consumed by education and Medicaid costs. Medicaid costs include, of course, hospital care, prescription drugs, doctors, but $4 billion is long-term care. That's nursing homes, mental health facilities, and home health services. So half of the state budget right away is spent on Medicaid and education. And the problem the state is facing, of course, is that more and more people are getting older in our state, and with the recession, more and more people are needing Medicaid. So the Medicaid costs are just ballooning in the state, and it's getting more and more difficult for them to balance the budget because of that.
So the Medicaid really has a large impact on the state budget. But
Absolutely.
Let's specifically about the nursing home cost and the impact that that has on the state budget as part of this equation.
Well, for one person to be in a nursing home, it costs about $65,000 a year. The majority of people who do go into nursing homes have that cost paid for by the state through Medicaid. You know, no matter how wealthy you are, unfortunately, a lot of people who even go into the nursing home as private pay, it's estimated within a year to two, they wind up on Medicaid. So the majority of people have their expenses for nursing home care paid for by the state. We're an older state. People, like I said, are 65 and over, ranked #1 in percentage of people 60 and over to the rest of the population compared to the rest of the country. So the longer you live, the more likely you are to have to go into a nursing home.
Well, and it's interesting that you pointed out that a lot of people really try to save and prepare, but with that kind of annual expense, it's easy to see how those savings could be depleted very quickly,
Absolutely.
and they may be getting a service that they thought they never would participate with. So how would diverting seniors from nursing homes present one solution to balancing the budget?
Well, in 2000, a year or so ago, there were approximately 27,000 people on the waiting list for services. This is around the whole state of Florida. 5,000 of those people wound up going into a nursing home. Now, that cost the state another $102 million. If they had spent just $24 million to provide them services in their homes, and we could talk about what services I mean in a minute, but if that money had been spent providing services in their home, they could have saved the state an estimated $77 million.
Okay, well, let's talk about those services. So if one possible situation for a person would be to go into a nursing home, the other would be in-home services. So
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about what those are and how that enables these people to live independently in a safe manner in their own home.
Well, we call them home and community-based services. We call the whole system we have in our state, what we do, and other agencies like ours around the state, are helping divert people from nursing home care. We do this by providing services from adult day health care, Meals on Wheels, homemakers, personal care, respite care for the caregiver, just a whole range of service, companionship, assistance with transportation. And people say, well, that costs a lot of money, and not necessarily. It may cost between $6,000 and $8,000 a year for a client, depending on what program they're on. And again, compare that $6,000 or $8,000 a year to $65,000 a year in a nursing home. And let me add here about nursing home care. We have, in this area, great nursing homes, and they serve a very important purpose. And our argument is not against nursing homes. They're needed, they're important, and we want them to be good quality nursing homes. But we want to keep people out of nursing homes for as long as possible.
Well, sure. I think everyone would prefer to stay in their own familiar surroundings as long as possible.
Absolutely.
And Medicaid and the state budget means the taxpayer. So it's actually the taxpayer
That's correct.
That's paying for people that may unnecessarily be going early into a nursing home. One of the other things that's been talked about in this conversation about nursing homes is managed care organizations. Besides just the cost issue that we've been talking about, what are some of the other pitfalls to a managed care organization type system?
Well, several years ago, Florida began contracting with large managed care organizations. For those people who aren't familiar with managed care organizations, they're like an HMO. The state of Florida said to some of these large for-profit organizations, we'll pay you and right now I think the cost is an average of $18,000 a year to care for a person who is frail and might need nursing home care. We'll pay you this money, and in turn you have to help keep them out of nursing homes. And if they have to go into a nursing home or a facility, you're responsible for paying that cost. Well, that on the surface that sounds like, well, that's a good deal because obviously $18,000 versus $65,000. But what is happening is most of those people that are being served in those programs are just as frail as the people, for example, that are served by our programs, and we don't get $18,000 a year per person. And so there's some question about whether or not that's I don't want to say fair, but whether or not that's a balanced approach. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. And a private for-profit company, let's say they're providing services in our area, and we have a history here. A few years ago, we had a large HMO that was providing Medicare services, and when they started to lose money, they simply said, well, we're going somewhere else, goodbye. And we don't want the state to put all their eggs in one basket. We want them to have options where people can choose from so that somebody doesn't come in here, provide all the services, and then decide they're not making enough money and leave. So that's, in my opinion, is a very real danger and pitfall.
Okay, well, what about the waiting list for the coming year? What is expected for this year? I mean, the population is continuing to grow and grow.
Mm-hmm. As I was talking to somebody else before the show, it's the past couple of years have been kind of bleak because of the recession, the problems the state has with its budget. There are 27,000 people still on the waiting list. Those numbers are continuing to grow. We're hoping that this year will not be as bad as the last couple of years because the state the economy is looking a little bit better. So we're hoping there's going to be some positive outcomes of the session this year.
Well, we know it's very important to create awareness, and for our viewers at Read Coming of Age magazine, Mr. Clark also has an article in the spring issue that has just come out. But besides just being aware and having an understanding, what can our viewers do as a call to action? How can they make their wishes known?
Well, that's a very good point. Our elected officials listen to their constituents. We would encourage them to learn what the issues are, and we do have this education piece, Jeff, if you want to, which will kind of explain what I've been talking about, and I'll be glad to mail that to people or email it to people. And what they need to do is read that, become familiar with the money that's saved by helping people in their homes versus an institution, and then contact their elected officials and ask their elected officials to support these programs. Because ultimately, the ones that are going to save it in the long end will be the Florida taxpayer by helping people stay in their homes and saving money in the Medicaid budget.
Well, that's great information, and I sure hope they take you up on that.
I do too.
And research and request this information that we have here, and also let their legislators know how they feel about that. So
Absolutely.
thank you for being here and all that you do for elders throughout the state, and
Thank you.
thanks again.
I appreciate it.